Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Staci Willis on the podcast. She's a bodybuilder coming to us all the way from Utah. She's a mom of five, which I mean, how you look like that after having five kids, I do not understand how that's possible. So we'll get into that. But she's also a nurse, and yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and really discuss all things with that. And yeah, just have a nice little conversation. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Staci, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. I apologize it's taken so long.
No worries at all. No, you guys, everyone. I mean, trust me. If I were to do a podcast of like all the times that take me for, trust me, it would be like a 10-hour long podcast. So you're good. I believe me. Like I told her, I understand busy schedules being that I was a baseball player and every weekend you were basically booked up in the summer. So yeah, I no worries at all. But I always ask this first of all to every single guest: what is the weather like in Utah today?
It is beautiful. It's like 78 degrees and a little bit windy, but not too bad. So it is perfect. I think we have it in the 80s the rest of the week. So
Yeah, that sounds good because I did have a guest on from South Dakota yesterday, and she was saying that it was going to be rainy and cloudy coming my way because I live right next to the state right next to her, and she was right. So hopefully some of that Idaho stuff will eventually come over to our neck of the woods. But before we get into that, because I mean that's weather woes, and I mean being a Minnesotan, I mean this entire podcast could just be that, and I don't want to depress everyone. But Staci, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape, and how that eventually led to you becoming a bodybuilder?
well, let's see. I've always kind of been a gym goer, I guess. My mom used to run and I would tag along with her to the gym and I would lift weights. Had no idea what I was doing, but that was in high school. And, like my senior year, I did, body conditioning. I think I had aerobics, I had yoga, and I was actually did competition dance when I was in high school. Not that I really am that good, but that's kind of my background. But, then I got married and we popped five kids out in 10 years. And you kind of get ultra focused on your family, which isn't a bad thing at all, but you kind of lose that your self concept, like individuality, I guess. Um, so finally, you know, I said enough is enough. I've got to take some time. And as a mom, sometimes you feel guilty taking your kids to like a daycare or leaving them somewhere so you can go do your workout. But I'm like, dude, it's like an hour, right? I can do this. So turned out to be a really good thing because my kids needed a break from me too. And um, at first, I was really into running. Like I had some friends that ran. They're like, hey, let's do this half marathon. Um, so I did a few half marathons and I ended up tearing a muscle in my hip area. And so I ended up still wanted to go to the gym, still wanted to, have that time because that was the only time of the whole day that I had for me, right? So everything else goes to my family. And so started, I downloaded like a program from bodybuilding.com and I would watch every video and just like copy what they were doing. And I met friends in the weight room and that some of them competed and they're like, you really should try this. And I was like, you've seen what you wear on stage? Yeah, no. Mm-mm. And you have to get that weird tan. Like, what is up with that? But it got my wheels spinning. And like about a year later, probably I decided, I guess I'll go back to running for a second. Um, Never in a million years would I have thought that I would run like a half marathon. And I really don't know that I could do a full marathon. Those people are amazing. But um, I just didn't think that I could do that. And finally one day I'm just like, you know what? You have legs, you can run just like anybody else can. And I didn't set out to be like the fastest or, I made a goal to not stop at all, right? So you reach one milestone and you kind of build on that. And that's kind of what I did with bodybuilding. I was looking at these people transform as they were going into their competitions. And I was like, never in a million dollars. No, I could never do that. Like, but finally I was just like, why? Same thing with running. Why not? We all have the same body parts. We all can figure it out. If they can do it, no reason that I can't. No reason that you guys can't. No reason. So found myself a coach and started in a natural organization. did 3 shows, got my pro card in that organization, and um, I was told that I was too built for even being a pro in the figure division in a natural organization. So then that's when I moved to the NPC and switched coaches because uh, Shane Hughley is my coach, and he has a great reputation in the you know. So I I didn't know a lot about the sport still at that point in time, but I did see Shane's people winning like show after show at the local shows. So
He cranks those people out. Yeah, I mean, it's he cranks out those winners, and yeah, it's ridiculous. And you mentioned 5 kids in 10 years, and I'm like, holy crap! I mean, that reminds me of my grandma on my mom's side, 7 kids in 8 years, and I was like, what is being pregnant for like 8 straight years? It's just, yeah, yeah, that is just more power to you. But when you were getting started, I mean, obviously everyone sort of struggles on finding out, what works best for them, because if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, I mean, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, what exercises they do. I mean, it's so many little things bottle up to that overall package that people end up seeing. What was that sort of like for you, figuring out what worked best for your body, because it's just so much trial and error?
oh, 100%. I think as the years go by, like you said, it is trial and error, and just even down to the food and how your body responds to food and performance from what you're eating, even. So, I mean, when I first started, I didn't realize how important it was to be getting in, you know, the vitamins that you need to help your body be on like full function capacity, or even how important enough protein was in building muscle. I like I said, I didn't know hardly anything about the sport when I first decided to compete, but it was amazing to see my body just like eat it up and just transform. And I think anybody who really puts forth the work ethic in their first competition will just be mind blown if they have the right coach and the right things going into their body. So from there, I guess, so I'm a little bit different. I know a lot of competitors do meal plans, probably the majority of them. I've always done macros with my coach. He gives me my numbers and I do my meal plan. But I basically eat, what is on a typical bodybuilding meal plan. It's just that it's probably because I'm a control freak and I like to have control over my food. Don't tell me what I can't eat, okay? No, but I don't eat a lot of bad things at all. I just like to have control over my menu.
Yeah, that's obviously, I mean, who doesn't want to have control over their menu too? And I mean, another thing with beginners that I love to talk about is genetics, because everyone's on social media and we hear this all the time. Oh my god, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. I just want to shake these people down and just be like, you do not understand that you cannot look just like them just by doing what they do, because some people are just built differently. And I mean, every time I hear that, I just want to laugh. But whenever someone does first get started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And then they have that one body part that just lags behind. They have to train to oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, my back was the one thing that really took off, because that was just always a thing for me. But I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot, where I always make the joke, I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Calves too. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
I mean, my delts, they just grow. That's an easy part to grow for me. In fact, coach will only let me train him. We were on twice a week when we very first started, and he's like, "You are not training more than once a week with your delts." But legs. My focus has always been back and quad sweeps. So those are my struggles. But back is that I have the opposite problem as you.
You put it perfectly. I mean, bodybuilding, it is a sport of an illusion, everyone. I mean, it's part of the trick. And I mean, we talked about nutrition a little bit previously, but what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously?
Mhm. Um, the biggest things were getting all of my protein in. I mean, that's a significant part of my diet, right? Also, I don't eat a lot of processed foods. Very minimal sugar. I don't eat gluten really. I mean, I do on occasion, but and it's funny as the process has gone on and you do eliminate those foods, to some extent, as you're getting closer to a show because you're low carb. And then when you bring them back in, you realize how sensitive you actually were to those because the bloating comes and all of that the other things. So I actually feel better without a lot of dairy and gluten in my diet. But those things just can lead to more inflammation too in your body. So I find that I look better and less bloated and things like that. Um, also, just getting your water in and stuff. I know on the days I don't drink all my water or all my fluids, I I definitely want to eat more. So I have to remind myself, like, you're probably not hungry, you're just thirsty. I wish Diet Coke counted as water, though. I really wish. It's just brown water, right?
Yeah, really. That's yeah. I wish it was too as well. But what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced to them that you wanted to become a bodybuilder, or at least give it a try?
Well, my family, my kids, my husband, they're all super supportive, amazing. Um, my my sisters are amazing. They're supportive. My parents, not so much. They we just agree not to talk about it, and then it's fine. It comes down to a modesty issue, and they don't understand that it's a sport, and that's the uniform, right? So it's not that you're out there. I think it all comes down to the competitor's mindset, and that's I'm not out there to show off my body in that way. Do you know what I mean? And it's not bodybuilding is not sexual in any way. It's the people that are looking at it in that way. Do you know what I mean? It is a complete sport. It's about sculpting your body. It's muscle development, So they just don't understand the sport.
Unfortunately, you can put anything in a sexual way too, but that's yeah, bodybuilding. It's not. It's just like, it's a beauty pageant with muscles, basically. That's really what it is when it really boils down to it. But when you were going, what is that like for you though? When you turn that switch on, when you go into a prep, because I compare it to like a light switch. Everything just becomes so down pat and so scientific. And you got to get your right meals in, you got to get your cardio in, you got to get your proper amount of sleep, you got to get all your workouts in. Everything just becomes so scientific and just so down pat. What is that like for you when that switch goes on in your head?
Um, sometimes it takes me a few weeks to get all in. I'm pretty sure my coach would probably say that too. But when that switch does go on and I'm all in, it's 100%. But I find that you really do have to prep yourself for that. So, if I'm not prepared for the week, it's really hard to meet those goals. And then when you're not meeting what's expected of you, you're not in alignment with your goals, right? So when you're not in alignment with your goals, you feel like you're doing like crap. You just don't know. Like everything goes downhill from there. So for me, what has helped the most is just making sure that my meals are prepped. I have a pill box that I can set all my supplements in for the week, so that's easy to grab because, like as you know, I have 5 kids and they're still sleeping, and I wake up at 4 in the morning just to go to the gym. So that I try to not let this affect my family as much as possible. So I don't want to take time away from them. So pretty much I take time away from my sleep. But I do a lot of late nights and early mornings, or just find time pockets during the day. But so in terms of training, that's kind of how I have to do it. For me, I know a lot of people do fasted cardio in the mornings. I actually usually do my weights and then some cardio in the morning just because I have more effort, more energy. And I don't ever do fasted anything because my blood sugar tanks. So I always eat before. But again, it all comes down to preparation. Like in the mornings, I don't want to wake up the whole family. So I always have, like if I have eggs in the morning, I have a baggie of like my everything that's going to go into those eggs, right? Like spinach, mushrooms, whatever. Just throw it in there. So I'm not like waking them up, and I can do things really fast. So that's what's helpful for me. And just, I don't know.
Oh, it's all about, and I normally ask this later on, but what is your relationship with sleep like? Because if you're getting up at 4 a.m. and stuff, God bless you, but I'm a naturally a night owl, so I'm going to bed, around like anytime between 1 and 3, really. But so what is it like for you? Because I mean, especially being on prep, where I mean, sleep is so important, and like you said, being a mom of five, sleep is probably something that you don't get as much as you should. But what's the proper amount that you try to get? And do you do anything to be able to get that? Like, do you take any melatonin or anything like that? Because so many people in this day and age, I feel, struggle to get that proper amount of sleep.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it is hard, and I know I'm pretty sure that I would see better results if I got more sleep because that's when your body recovers. You really do need that sleep, for hormone balance, everything. It's just really important. Um, I think if I can get 6 hours of sleep, I'm golden. But usually I average about 4. I I I can't go to bed much earlier because my kids are still up, and it's just impossible. So um, I will take naps on my lunch breaks though sometimes. I try to walk, but sometimes I just like cannot keep my eyes open. So those mini power naps, man, they're killer. They rejuvenate you for sure. But
I wish I could take naps, but I'm one of those just naturally energetic people where once I wake up, I'm like this until I go to bed. Or my nap is basically me just falling or closing my eyes, and then I just close my eyes for like half an hour, and then hopefully I recover something out of it. But unfortunately, that's the only case. But I mean, we talked about this a little bit prior, and I mean, the number one myth that I love to bust on this podcast is, I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there's still so many women that have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they pick up, one dumbbell, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, how would you like to, or how do you deal with that now? Because I bet you still hear that excuse all the time.
yeah, no, I was never afraid. I always wanted to, just I guess growing up, I read a lot of like health and fitness magazines. And so I was always trying to, you know, I think I came to the understanding that it's not, you can't tone something, but you can build muscle to get that toned look, right? So I wasn't afraid of building muscle, but I would tell anybody who says, I don't, because I actually get people that will come up to me and they'll say something like, wow, you have a lot of muscle and you look amazing, but I would never want to look like that. I've had seriously that comment like multiple times. So I'm always like, was that a compliment or a diss? I'm not sure, um, but the thing is, great, you never will because it takes a lot of work to build muscle. I mean, I've been consistently lifting 6 days a week for 7 years, and I still don't have muscles in areas I want. So I think to women, they really just need to understand that you pick up a weight, you're not gonna look like a man. You will, what will happen is you won't be skinny fat, right? You'll just develop those muscles and that toned look that you want. And um, if the women who do have a substantial amount of muscle are usually enhanced then to some sort with supplements. So you don't got to worry about that.
Well, and if you do end up looking like a man after one time, then you just stop lifting then. That's the easiest solution then. It's like what do you think it's going to be permanent? And if it is permanent for you, then you have the best genetics on the planet. So then just roll with it and then do yeah, I just never understood that myself at all. But I mean, one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than it does men when it comes to just this health and fitness lifestyle is that the confidence boost. I mean, we've heard it, hundreds of times on this podcast how, a lot of women take that confidence boost and they use it to impact their lives in, ways that most men wouldn't, where I mean they either become more assertive or it's that one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your life in a positive way, really in every single aspect. How have you personally taken that confidence boost that working out's given you and use it to impact your life in a positive way?
Oh my gosh. It's honestly changed my life. I've always been really shy and I still am, but um, just really self conscious and things. So to be able to, especially living in Utah where culturally sometimes,
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but she brought it up. Yeah.
yeah, what I do is not acceptable. I have some amazing friends and people you know, in my corner that see it as a sport, and as long as people see it as a sport, it's fine. But I think that it, it's allowed me to really find out who I am, right? Because doing something against the norm, you have to be solid in who you are and what you're doing and the reasons behind it. And it's also going through a prep and pushing your body to those limits it becomes not really about the physical aspect, but the mental, and it shows you just what you're capable of. And if you can, you find that if you're capable of controlling these aspects of fitness and health and food in your life, there's a lot more things that you're capable of doing. So, actually went back again with the mindset. You know, I went back to school at what, a few years back to finish my degree. I've been a nurse for 20 years, but I never finished my bachelor's degree because it's not, there's no difference in, there's no difference in pay. So there was no reason to. But I wanted to get my master's degree, right? So I did do that. And I don't think that I would have maybe had the courage or the thought that I could do it if it wasn't for the lessons that I've learned through bodybuilding. I always say life lessons through bodybuilding, right? So um yeah, it's just taught me a lot about who I am and what I can do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, it definitely, yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those sports where I've always told people, I mean, if you can go through a prep, I mean, you can really accomplish anything in your life because I mean, it's just with how hard that is. But I mean, I love to talk posing too because that's the number one thing that I've found out that is like the hardest thing for so many of these competitors where it's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than the working out. I would have never personally guessed it in a million years, but I compare it now to being a perfect driver where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver, you can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What is your experience with posing been like?
Um I think back to my first competition and it was awful. It was so awful. I did get first place in that competition. I have no idea why because I was like as stiff as a board and it truly was awful. But I I'm always afraid of doing the man down pose in my 5-inch heels in my swimsuit, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna. So it is so important because you can have the best physique on stage, but you won't, if you can't showcase that, then the judges aren't going to even notice you. You know, my coach always tells us, you know, you've got about 30 seconds to make an impression once you get on stage. And if you're not on point, they're not even going to notice you. That's your chance to make the first impression, right? Especially with like a national show when you're competing for that pro card. Um, there's so many amazing physiques. I mean, there's definitely a top and a bottom and a middle, but there's a lot more at that top level than you're used to at local shows. So that is definitely important. And then at the pro level, I can't speak for that yet, but you know what the pros look like.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. And out of your poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
oh gosh, I don't know. um, the front pose is, I don't know. Front pose might be my least favorite just because my quads, I have a hard time flexing them. And I'm always like, "Argh." I just remember standing at my last competition and my coach yelling at me like to flex them, flex them, flex them. And I'm like, oh, I am. I'm pretty sure I might have mouthed it too. But I think that's my favorite. I don't know. Maybe the side pose. I don't know if I have a favorite.
Oh no, and I mean, yeah, it's different for everyone too. And I mean, yeah, we've heard, a variety of answers on that. And it's I mean, one thing that I've heard, yeah, is usually like the front, yeah, is usually one of the harder ones. But what is that moment like for you when you finally get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months, if not years on? Because I mean, I always compare it to like me being when I was playing baseball. I mean, I'd pitch, like 20, 30 times a year and I'd be out there for like hours at a time where you guys are only on that stage for minutes at most. And you've worked more harder than I've ever worked at anything in my life, probably on. So what is that like when you finally get to, step up on that stage and you'll be like, okay, all of this hard work is now finally paid off for this moment?
Oh man. I don't know. Every show, I just like you are walking up those stairs and you're waiting for your turn to go on. And I'm always like, just say a little prayer and um, just try to act confident. But just being on stage, so obviously the first few times I was on, I probably shook like a leaf. It was scary, my nerves. But now I'm just excited. Like I love being on the stage. I don't think I shake that much. I don't get as nervous for sure, but um, I don't know, I'm pretty nervous for this next competition coming up, so we'll see how that goes. But um, it's it's an amazing feeling to, walk on stage knowing that you've given all you got and you no regrets, right? And just to get to that moment, that's what I love. It's my favorite part.
I hate to do this. I hate to torture you, but what is a meal that you're looking most forward to having after this next show?
Well, I do love Mexican food. So a lot of times we'll have Mexican, but I love a big, huge burger for sure. But I'm a sucker for cookies too, like the gourmet cookies, right? So probably those things. uh, yeah, cookies are my jam.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've had guests on that make like their own designer cookies, and I hate having them on because my mouth just absolutely waters. Then just looking at them, I'm like, okay, you're making me hungry right now when I shouldn't be. But I mean, my trigger word and the one thing that I hate more than anything else is cardio. And I mean, when I say cardio, I mean like actual running. Like I could walk, for a marathon, basically. I could do that. But like with the actual running part, I mean, I even told an ex girlfriend of mine, you're basically gonna have to chase me with a knife if you want to see me run. That's like the only time you're ever gonna see it. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Because I know that you were a runner before then, and I do clarify that as a mental illness though, because it's like, why do people willingly want to do that? I mean, there's something wrong up there. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Because unfortunately, when you do become a bodybuilder, you do sort of sign a deal with the devil that says, I'm gonna have to do cardio.
Yeah. So those words, like, why would you run? Why would you do that for yourself? That exact phrase came out of my mouth just a couple days ago because it is a lot harder to run these days. Like when you build muscle, and I mean, I almost weigh as much as I did when I was pregnant. Like I I put on a lot of mass um, over the years, and it's a lot just harder to run. But for cardio, I'm not one that can sit on machines for hours on hours. So my cardio is high right now. I'll just put it that way. So I do love. Um, Actually, took a break from it for right now, but I do coach fitness classes at a place called Pivot, and it's kind of like functional training, like hit style. I don't even want to say CrossFit, but
Ugh.
It's a little like we do like snatches, clean press, stuff like that. But like EMOMs and AMRAPs and stuff like that. But so I will do some circuit training for cardio, and then I'll do a little bit on the treadmill and stuff. But I love fitness classes. I love group fitness classes. I like the energy from them. So that's kind of my jam, to get in at least an hour of my cardio a day. And then I'll go on walks with my dog and stuff. But just my coach is just always like move, 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 right? So total daily expenditure. The more you move.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the worst thing for me. But I mean, let's be completely honest. You're not the average looking mom of five. I mean, especially being in Utah too. If when you walk out in public, I mean, obviously, like if you're covered up now, but people can still see like the muscle. But if you were like sleeveless or whatever, what is that reaction like that you get? Because I sort of like compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where I mean, everyone's attention is drawn just because it's something that they don't see. It's not of their normal. So, what has that been like for you? Sort of adjusting to that, and getting sort of used to the fact that yeah, you are going to draw a lot more people's attention now.
Definitely do. I had that. I was just at baseball games all day yesterday, for example, and I mean, you get the little kids that are pointing at you. You walk by people and you can tell that they're talking about you, and then you turn around and they're all staring at you. I actually had two men stop me yesterday and say, "Whoa, like you have an amazing physique." I don't love attention. Like of course, everyone likes the spotlight, but I don't like center stage, right? like, I don't. It makes I need to find like a good way to respond, right? I'm always like, thanks. I think thanks, but I don't know. It is kind of something to get used to because just like right now, I have just veins everywhere, and yeah, my shoulders don't fit in my shirts.
So what is that like when it comes to clothing options finding too? Because I mean, when you're a bodybuilder, you basically have to have two sets of wardrobes.
100% you do. And don't go dress shopping because I actually got stuck in a dress one time and it was awful. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna rip it. What do I do? There's no one to help me take it off. I think I finally had to go and find a salesperson to help me take it off. But yeah, definitely two sets of clothing. Like I'm actually probably three. Like for when you're super lean, middle, and hopefully I won't get into the next one this time. Reversing is tough. So
Well, and you brought it up perfectly, and I mean, I love to talk about it because another myth that I love to bust is that people just do not understand that you are not that stage look 24/7, 365 days out of the year, and a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't understand that like you can never be that lean, all the time. And I mean, there are people that might be genetically able to pull it off for just a tad bit longer than other people, whether it's a few weeks or so, but like it is not your body. I'm gonna be clear honest, your body's not in the healthiest spot because you're just all dieted down and drained down. But what is that like for you when you realize, at that moment, like, hey, this is the best that I'm going to look for a while. And unfortunately, I am going to have to put on some weight. And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career in bodybuilding has gone on?
I think I've had a few really hard years. And that's the only time my husband ever complains because he's like, you're a psycho. Like, you look fine. It's going to be fine. But you go through that period where you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But I think, the past few years, I've been better with accepting like weight gain and things. And I've kind of, I don't know. I remember there was 1 or 2 years where it was really bad and it can get scary if you don't reverse right. There was one time that I woke up literally overnight and I'd gained 20 pounds and I had blisters on my knees, like from the water retention. And my heart was just, I honestly, and I've had friends who've had to go to the hospital before. And that's me. That's totally me. My coach tells me what to do. That's me not following the plan, right? That's me going in excess of, like, my body's not used to that many carbs, and for every carb you eat, you pull in a certain amount of water and my body is reacting and it doesn't know how to respond, right? So I think that experience alone kind of I just have to pull that and remind myself what can happen. So I mean, reversing is the toughest part, I think, of prep. Prep is easy compared to reversing, but you can't stay that lean. That's for sure. And if you are, then your hormones are probably really messed up. And as females, we need those hormones to fully function, to be our healthiest. And it just sets you up for a ton of other problems if you're not going to allow your body to gain back at least a little bit of fat. And it also makes it hard to make substantial changes for the next time you get on stage.
I mean, yeah, I've always compared it to the sort of like starting your own business where you got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, unfortunately, those two do go hand in hand. But now I want to get into, the big elephant in the room, the coronavirus, because it's been one thing that, has impacted and changed our lives in more ways than we can ever imagine. And I mean, I know my Australians that are listening out there, I mean, they just went into another lockdown literally last night, but things are really, coming somewhat back to normal here in the US. But what was your experience like during this, especially being a nurse and being a bodybuilder and with the gyms closing for that period that they were closing? I mean, how did you deal with everything during that whole period?
Um, that was really that was really hard, because I had started a prep and I was actually, I think I had, I don't know, like 10 weeks left. And then everything shut down, and are they going to have shows? Are they not? How do you continue your fitness? How do you keep training? Of course, those were all questions that I had. So, I had some equipment that I used in my garage. We have some amazing trails and outdoor, like adventure stuff here in Utah. So I found trails that I'd never seen before. So we did a lot of hiking to be active. Fortunately, Utah's gyms weren't closed for a long time. They did open back up a few months later. So that we were very fortunate for that reason. But it did affect my competition season for 2020. I wanted that to be my pro debut, and the shows that I was shooting for, there was one I think that decided to drop figure and move to a different venue, and then the dates kept changing. And then pretty soon, so my husband is a huge hunter. He hunts, like that is his hobby. And so I usually can have the summer and spring, but he is gone literally for 3 months in the fall. And so it just got into his hunting season. And then again, we have 5 kids. So I just had to like nix it. So I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? And I think it was a blessing because I think it will allow me to have made more changes for this upcoming show. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and that's great that yeah, that you were able to sort of get through that because I know some people that really struggled with that too. But I mean, yeah, it's just how everyone got through that period is just really fascinating, and especially with like how everyone got and dealt with the pandemic. Did you have to do like any like at home workouts, or how are you staying in shape even though the gyms were only closed for a short period of time?
Yeah. So um, I have I have equipment in the garage that I would use, and then we did walk a lot, like I said, and we hiked a lot. Um, and then I had friends that had equipment, so we would kind of hit it up there. I found a gym that maybe I shouldn't say that. No, I'm not going to say that
Oh, that's
because they
fine.
can
No,
edit that part.
no, I know.
Get in
People
trouble,
said
but
all the time they have gyms that they know, like if you knew that you're a bodybuilder. Yeah, that's been told, multiple times. So yeah, I totally get that too. So no worries at all. But yeah, that'll be edited out too if you want it to be. So no worries there. So I'll go down to, my final two questions that I love to ask everyone. So, you know, well, actually, before those two, I'll ask. So, what really, would you like to say to anyone if they walk up to you and said, like, wow, Stacy, you look amazing. I want to get in shape myself. What advice would you have for them just to get started? Because I find for so many people, I mean, just taking that first step when you first walk into a gym, it is very hard to walk out without getting a workout in. So, what advice would you have for someone if they just look to just get started?
started in the gym or like with nutrition or
Just
in general.
just with anything, like if they just wanted to start, with a fitness journey.
Yeah. So I've had a few, I have people reach out to me all the time and ask for advice. But honestly, my biggest advice would be really take a deep dive on your nutrition. Look at what you're eating. Because if you get a coach or if you want help, I need to know what you're eating, like for at least that week or two. Like, what is your average calorie intake? What is your average, you know, output? Like, what are you doing for activity right now? Right? Because once you have that baseline, then you can start working on the small things. And I would say to start small. I think so many people, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this like 6 week, 8 week, 12-week program, and I'm going to change my body. And then what happens when that 12 weeks is up? They're like thinking about what their biggest cheat meal is going to be, and they go right back to what they were doing. But if you can start small, like add in your water, eliminate certain things, like sweets to once a week, or just take it slow, then you can snowball those things together and actually find really great results that are going to last. And in terms of the gym, there's a ton of great online programs that you can follow if you want, but just consistency, that's the problem. Consistency is key. If you mess up one day, who cares? Just get right back on the horse and start again tomorrow. Start again the next meal. Just keep going.
Apps, or they do the mistake and they go full on Rambo, like some of my friends, where they go and work out, for like 3 hours a day for like a week, and then their body just shuts down, and then they quit. So yeah, and I mean, just going with that full on Rambo, I mean, they really do sort of mess things up. So at least people don't do that as much. But if we were to talk to you in a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to just be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
A year from today. So I know I will be doing my first pro show in 5 weeks. So I'll have that under my belt. At that point, I'll decide what the rest of the year looks like. I might be done for this year. I might do another one, maybe two. I'm not sure. Um, I would. So here in Utah, they did, just going to put it out there, they did put a pro figure division at the Wasatch Warrior. And I was super excited about that. I help at that show every year. It's an amazingly run show. Robin Mayer, she does an amazing job as a promoter. And I would really like to compete in that show because it's local. My family could come. So that is next April or May. So I'd really like to do that competition. So that in terms of competing, that would be my plan. Um, Other big things, gosh, I just need to focus on, family things. We're going to be planning a lot of fun family vacations, and then I actually need to finish my master's degree. So I will be going back to school soon.
That is awesome, and we will hope to do check in with you on that. And I mean, lastly, if someone walked up to you and said, Stacy, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
Well, I love I love the years when like Nicole Wilkins was competing, Heather Dees was up there. Um, it just the evolution of bodybuilding, it's getting especially the figure division. They're all of them really. They've just changed so much and it's
You're basically physique competitors 10 years ago.
exactly, exactly. And when I first started as a figure competitor, I would have been a bikini competitor at this today. Um, I just kind of wish that it would at least stand still, that everyone keeps pushing the supplements or pushing the envelope and people just keep getting better, so you have to keep getting better, right? So it's evolving. I guess I don't know if I would change it because it pushes you to be better, but I don't know. I think I would actually change how people view it.
That too, and that's one thing that I'm hoping to do with this podcast too, and that's just awesome. And then lastly, I mean, we just by looking at some of your profile pictures or your Instagram photos, you are a very like you said, a very veiny person. Is that something that you've like always been? Because it's really just genetics on this pod. Where we've had some people where they could be super lean and they don't even have any veins at all, but for you, it's like basically whole maps all over your body. So have you always been like that? And like when you get leaned down, do they show like really quickly, or is it one thing that like comes up at the end?
No, it's all about my coach. I remember having this conversation with my coach, and I'm like, why are some people so vascular? Like, I can never get vascular, like, we were talking about legs actually, or some people get crazy stomach veins, and he's like, it's about body fat. That's basically what he said. You have to be lean enough to be vascular. And for me, my upper body I lean out from the top to the bottom. So my shoulders and my back will have veins and striations before my fat even drops from my legs. So it's like two separate. We all have our genetics and how we drop fat, and genetically, I am predispositioned to hold my body fat in my lower body. So I'm not vascular everywhere, but that's actually one of my goals is to see veins in my legs. So few weeks, we'll see.
Some people have them, and yeah, that's awesome. And again, you guys, I mean, we cannot thank Stacy enough for coming on and for sharing her story. And I mean, Stacy, we cannot wish you anything but the best. And I honestly think you're going to do great.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Well, again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, and go follow her Instagram page down below. I'll leave the link. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.